After the release of the original Mega Man game, Capcom wasn't really interested in making a sequel, but some of the employees there thought that Mega Man had franchise potential and wanted to make one, so Capcom said, "Sure, but only work on it while you're working on other games." So yeah, Mega Man 2 was essentially a passion project by those involved. They even held a contest where fans could submit drawings for boss designs, and some of which would be used in the game. Capcom actually kept doing this until Mega Man 8. Mega Man 2 effectively saved the series because there was no way it was going to become what it would have without it. In fact, it wouldn't have even had a sequel if it weren't for Mega Man 2 and the people who wanted to make it. Mega Man 2 sold incredibly well despite still having terrible box art, and many people consider it to be the best Mega Man game. I'm not one of those people. I don't want to undermine what this game did for the franchise because it did save it and it did a lot of things that would then end up being in the later games, but that doesn't necessarily make it a good game. Because it does expand on what the first game does in a meaningful way, I would call it a good sequel, but not a good game. Because this game adds 2 Robot Masters, which the other games also have following this one. And the presentation of this game is 100% upped from the first one. It has an opening cutscene this time stating that Wily created 8 of his own robots to fight Mega Man. And, of course, Wily's back because Mega Man didn't actually arrest the bugger at the end of the first game. I don't know what he was thinking. The Robot Masters now have their own portraits instead of just having their sprites standing in boxes, and I think that's a nice detail. The pointless score system was removed, and when you're gonna go fight Wily, you actually get to see a cutscene where he goes into his castle, and there's a map after you defeat each of the levels in the castle. Plus, there's an ending cutscene that isn't just the credits, and some of the items got different sprites. In addition to these presentational changes, Mega Man 2 also adds a new mechanic where there are E-tanks, as they're called. You can find them in the stages, pick them up, hold 4 at a time, and whenever you want to use them, you can, and it refills your health entirely. Also, if you get a game over, you lose all the E-tanks you have. Also, defeating some of the Robot Masters in this game will give you additional items that allow you to use them as platforms. They are creatively named Item 1, Item 2, and Item 3. I wonder how long it took them to come up with those. Mega Man 2 is also an improvement in the sense that where the first game had no good levels, Mega Man 2 has 2 good levels. It's better than nothing. The only other ones that stood out were the ones that had atrociously bad design. Heatman stage requires you to navigate these disappearing blocks over a hole. Some of the blocks literally appear above you to cut off your jumps. The best bet is to just use item 2 if you have it and skip that entire section. Quickman stage is without exaggeration the worst level I have played in any video game ever. There's this pointless room with lantern enemies where killing them makes the room turn dark and it doesn't even fit the theme of the stage. Then there are a ton of lasers that you have to dodge with pixel-perfect timing, and if they touch you at all, they kill you. Sometimes, you can enter the screen from certain positions, and if you enter the screen from those positions, you will die no matter what. Yes, you can use Flashman's weapon, the Time Stopper, to help you here, but the thing is, the weapon can't take you through the whole thing. Using it once uses all of its energy, and using that doesn't make it last the whole way through. Plus, Quickman is weak to that weapon, and he's a pretty brutal boss if you don't have his weakness. Which still only takes out half of his health bar. Which is fine, actually, because of the fact that every other boss in the game just gets absolutely decimated by their weakness. And half of the Robot Masters are weak to Metal Man's weapon anyway, including Metal Man himself! Really, his weapon breaks the entire game except for when enemies are arbitrarily immune to it. It has an absurd amount of ammunition, can aim in 8 directions, does high damage, and goes through enemies that it defeats, hurting the enemies behind it. Basically, as soon as you defeat Metal Man, that's it. The game is over. You win. What makes this item balancing even worse is the fact that Metal Man is the easiest boss with the easiest stage, and the stage gives you an energy tank at the beginning for free. So there's no reason to not start with him. Even in the game's hard mode, which in the Japanese release is just the normal mode, but they made it the hard mode in the other releases because they thought gamers outside of Japan couldn't handle it, I guess. It's still broken in the hard mode. It makes the game a complete joke. The reason for this is because under the conditions the game is made, they didn't have time to balance the items. All they had time to do was make sure the game ran properly. So, that does explain why it's like this. That doesn't excuse it, that doesn't mean it isn't a problem, but it does explain why it's like that. After you defeat Wily, you drop into this place that looks like Labyrinth Zone from the first Sonic game and fight Wily again, and he turns himself into an alien this time. You defeat him with bubbles, and it's revealed that it was actually a hologram. And then Mega Man just leaves Wily again!